Guys, so one of the things we learned about picking a barrel, you've seen Tim's version of us listening, is that each one of these numbers means that there's a date, time, whatever came from it. Here's the thing, this has 53-gallon capacity, but most of the whiskey, especially in Texas, in a facility like this, is going to go through quite a few changes. Now the challenge is making sure you monitor change. You got to monitor it quick. So when he gets a barrel, he checks the yield that you saw with the stick in one of the videos. Second thing he does, so what are we working with here? And you'd be surprised. You would be surprised. How many people like rye? How many people like bourbon? If you like Scotch, the majority of it is barley. I tell you, man, I've learned a lot over the past few weeks, and I try to read a little bit more about whiskey. I didn't know that I like rye. I gotta be honest, I didn't know that I like bourbon. Hell, I never read the label, so I didn't know what I was drinking. But the famous saying is, and Q said it in other videos, brown is what goes down. Vodka make you feel a little funny. Tequila have you seeking Jesus. Because you're going to make some terrible choices on tequila. But whiskey always kind of calms you down, and then sometimes it warms you up. And depending on who you're around, you get effed up. So what I love about, now that I know this, Tim sources from MGP, which is a brand that basically distills for other brands. So you might not see it at the front of the bottle or sometimes at the back of the bottle. But if it says distilled in Indiana, a lot of times it comes from these guys. Now what I've learned to respect by these guys is that there's all types of magic that comes from them. So you say, hey, what are the tools you need? And we'll go through that too, to be able to pull whiskey. Well, check this cool thing out. This right here is a unique thief that they bought, that Tim had created. So what this does is, a lot of times you see the thieves, you put your thumb here, you pull the whiskey out, fill it up in a cup. This allows him to choose whiskey from right here. What does that mean? Water is lighter than whiskey, not by color, but we're talking mass volume. I know that's not going to make sense, but you know how like you put an ice cube in water, where it rises, right? Well, same thing here. Your proof, aka the water, is going to be, the proof is going to be a little higher here than here, but most of your flavor is going to be right in the middle. So you might pull just pure, like almost pure alcohol from here. Here you'll pull flavor, but that's also why they have the thief thing that you put all the way down there and pull from the middle, so you get flavor. So if you have 75% yield, meaning like the majority of this barrel's filled, you want to pull from about right here to make sure you get the best flavor profile, especially when it's stacked straight up like this. Now when it's on its side, you get a little bit better balance. And again, I'll do more detailed videos on how this works, but this is something I literally learned just in the past 24 hours, and it makes sense. All of your heat, per se, all that ethanol is sitting at the top. Because what is water? What happens with water and alcohol, or alcohol, in this case bourbon and water? It kind of separates, but it doesn't, right? So stay tuned, people. Keep it whiskey. I just took you to a light version. Tim's going to break it down a little bit more. So Tim, you've got a thief, and the thief is not for stealing purposes, so don't use this on anybody's home. But I was walking.
It is for stealing purposes. To steal whiskey from the barrel. That's why they call it a thief.
Isn't that crazy? It's literal, very literal. So walk them through why you would choose whiskey. Let's say it has 75% yield. Why would you pick the whiskey from this part of the barrel versus that part of the barrel?
From a taste standpoint,
yes.
So the higher it is, the lighter it is, the higher proof it is. So if I'm trying to find a real sample, I'll kind of cycle it a little bit and try it, or I'll try to get something from the middle. So water weighs more than whiskey, so it's going to be lower proof here, higher proof here. So if I just take a little scoop off the top, it's not going to be a real representation of what it is. So because there's so much in here that and we're dealing with such small scale, so nobody else does this shit, because it's like they're taking 50 barrels at a time, dumping them together, and it's like doesn't matter. Yeah, when we're making something that's 30 bottle release, every variable matters. So
what about whiskey then gets you excited when you get to this part of the barrel? You say, wow, that's interesting. So you get excited like we just saw, and we're like, yo, we got to blend this one and see what happens.
Yeah, so it just depends on the whiskey, and then how it went to like candy corn and like super sweet, and it's like, oh man, I'm thinking of other ryes that are kind of on the sweet side also, but to push them over to where like people that just love bourbons, then I could almost still keep it a rye, adding some 95% rye, but then it would have this really sweet component to it. So it was so sweet that I wanted to, add a little more spice to it.
Yeah.
So
guys, and what we're about to do now is take you through a blending experience and what that kind of looks like and what he's thinking as he figures out how many parts to what parts to make it a complete whiskey. So stay tuned. That's good.